Good morning, students. Welcome back to online biology classes. As in the previous lesson, we have started with chapter 2, the flower. Our today's topic for the same chapter is types of flower and pollination. So let us begin. Types of flowers. The first type of flower is complete flower. A flower that shows all the four whorls, that are sepals, petals, stamen, and carpel, is an complete flower. So, if any flower where all the four whorls will be shown, that flower will be called as a complete flower. They consist of both androecium and gynoecium, and also known as bisexual flowers. Why bisexual? Bi means two, having two sexes, that is androecium and gynoecium. Example of complete flower are hibiscus, rose, lily, etc. Next type of flower is incomplete flower. A flower that lacks one or more whorls are called incomplete flower. So if any flower, any of the whorl will be absent, or it will lack any of the whorl, it will be called as incomplete flower. Since they lack either androecium or gynoecium, they are called unisexual flower. So in this type of incomplete flower, either they will be having androecium and gynoecium will be absent, or either they will be having gynoecium where androecium will be absent. Only one kind of sex will be present in the flower. That is why they are called unisexual flower. Staminate flower are male flower. It means they are only having androecium. Pistillate flower are female flower. That means they are only having gynoecium. Example of incomplete flower are begonia, cucumber, ginkgo, etc. Neutral flowers. The flowers which have neither androecium nor gynoecium are called neutral flowers or neuter flowers. It means in such kind of flowers there is no androecium or no gynoecium. Nothing is present. They are called neuter flowers. Example, ray florist of sunflower, willow, etc. Now let us come on functions of flower. The primary or main function of a flower is reproduction. Reproduction means, as I've already explained you, to create new plants, to form new plants, to reproduce new plants. So this is the main function of a flower. It reproduces by producing fruits, and fruits contain seeds, and seed contains baby plant inside it. When we sow the seed in the soil, a new plant, a baby plant emerges from it, which grows to a adult plant. So this is the primary function of a flower, that is reproduction. In order to understand reproduction in flower, this whole process is divided into two parts. The first part is pollination and the second part is fertilization. So let us study the reproduction in flower. The first part is pollination. What is pollination? The process of pollination involves the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same or another flower. So what happens in pollination? In pollination, the transferring is happening. Transferring of what is happening? Transferring of pollen grains. Those yellow powdery substances present on the anther, that is transferred from one flower to another flower, from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower or the same flower. Thus, the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma can take place in the following ways. So, what are the ways in which this transfer of the transfer of pollen grain can take place? Number 1, transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower. Thus, it involves one flower. So, within one flower, also the transfer can take place. Transfer of pollen grain from the anther of same flower to the stigma of same flower. In this, how many flowers will be involved? One flower. Second case, transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same plant but another flower. Thus, it involves two flowers but of the same plant. In second case, there will be two flowers involved. In that, from one flower, the pollen grain will transfer to the second flower, but both the flowers will be on the same plant. Over here, two flowers will be involved, but how many plants will be involved? One plant will be involved. Third case, transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of a flower of another plant but of same type. Thus, two flowers of different plants but of same types are involved. Now, in this third case, there will be two plants. Two plants will be there, but the condition is the plants will be of same type or same variety. You may say two rose plant, you may say two jasmine plants. All right, the plant should be same. So the transfer of pollen grain can take place from one plant, flower of one plant, to the flower of next plant but of the same type. Types of pollination. There are two types of pollination. First is self-pollination and second is cross-pollination. What is self-pollination? As the name is suggesting, self means in the same flower or in the same plant. So, in this type of pollination, transfer of pollen grain take place from anther of same flower to the stigma of same flower or another flower of the same plant. Are you understanding? In self-pollination, either one flower will be involved, in which the transfer of pollen grain will take place from anther to the stigma, or either two flowers of the same plant will be involved. This is also called self-pollination. In this process, only one plant is involved. Alright, in self-pollination, how many plants are involved? Only one plant is involved. Coming on the second type of pollination, that is cross-pollination. In this type of pollination, transfer of pollen grains take place from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of another plant but of same type. So in this cross pollination, cross means interchanging of the pollen grain. Over here there will be two plants involved, but both the plants will be of the same variety. Rose or jasmine, both will be rose, both will be jasmine. In this case, what will happen? The pollen grain from plant 1 will transfer to the stigma of the another plant, that is plant 2. In this process, two plants but of same types are involved. In cross pollination, how many plants are involved? Two plants are involved, but both the plants are of same type. And in self pollination, how many plants are involved? One plant is involved. Alright, that is why it is called self pollination. And cross pollination, two plants are involved, that is why it is called cross pollination. Let us see the given diagram. Here there are two plants, plant 1 and plant 2. In plant 1 you can see self pollination taking place. This self pollination, you can see either the pollen grains are being transferred in the same flower or another flower of the same plant. This is the self pollination. Coming on the next plant, that is cross pollination. That cross pollination is taking place from plant 1 by wind, insect, animal, etc. The pollen grain is carried to plant 2, the flower of plant 2. So this is called cross pollination. You can easily study the process by the given picture. So thank you students, that's all for today. This chapter will be continued. Do clear your doubts in the comment section and have a good day.